We as a family found out 2 or 3 days before that, and it was hard. It was a heartbreaking revelation. It caught us all by surprise. We had no idea.
Do you know the crazy and twisted story of the man who committed truly horrible acts to Jacob Roloff from Little People Big World when he was just a kid? Just over a year ago, Jacob came forward with the devastating news that when he was a child, the executive field producer of Little People Big World, Chris Cartman, had taken advantage of him. It was absolutely heartbreaking to hear as a fan of the show, and according to Matt, the family was just as devastated and had absolutely no idea that anything had happened until Jacob told them all just before he made the announcement public. But what most people don't know is the bizarre backstory of Chris Cartman and his time on Little People Big World. Even though Jacob just made the announcement in 2020, super fans of the show knew that Chris had had a weird and twisted past with both the family and the show for years before that. Chris joined Little People Big World as the executive field producer in 2007, and just 1 year later, on October 20th, 2008, he was actually arrested in Santa Clara, California for crimes against children. The Sun spoke with a public information officer who clarified the situation, saying, quote, "The suspect, Christopher Cartman, was ultimately arrested and booked into the main jail in San Jose for acts with a minor. He was held on $200,000 bond and was released on November 12, 2008, less than a month later." So you would have to wonder why he kept working for TLC and on Little People Big World, right? But at the time, I think all the kids were still minors and they made up 2/3 of the main cast. And I'm sure that Matt and Amy were aware of the arrest, right? So, I mean, how could they not be? October is pumpkin season for the Roloffs, and the show literally has proof that the camera crews were there for, the October 2008 pumpkin season. And since Chris was field producer, he definitely would have been at the farm, but he was a little busy getting arrested in California. So there's no way that Matt and Amy didn't know. And now a lot of people are speculating that Jacob was his victim, maybe, that caused his arrest in 2008. And I have a lot of thoughts about this. I mean, first of all, I don't think that's something any of us should be speculating about, number one. And second of all, it's not even logically or logistically possible. I mean, Matt said that both of him and Amy had no idea about anything bad happening with Chris to Jacob until Jacob told them in 2020. So if Chris had been arrested for something he did, to Jacob, I think we would have known about it. And on top of that, the fact that he kept working on the show after he got out of jail, I really don't think that would have happened if Matt and Amy were aware that Jacob was one of his victims. But I still don't understand why they let him keep working on the farm with their kids, because they had to have known about his arrest and what the arrest was for. And the craziest thing about it to me is that Matt said in that same interview that he, was never worried about the people within their own circle, only about some of the crazy fans who were trying to get, into contact with him. And again, didn't he know about Chris's arrest? And it just doesn't make any sense. But back to Chris's arrest, he allegedly kept working on Little People Big World for the entire time his case was going on, literally until the case ended. And I don't think there's any way he could have hidden that from TLC or the Roloffs. And on May 26, 2009, he pleaded not guilty, and on December 7, 2010, he accepted a plea deal and was convicted of child cruelty with possible injury or death, but all of the charges were dismissed. But this is when it really gets crazy, you guys, because he spent 73 days in jail after his conviction, and that also lines up when he left Little People Big World. So along with his jail stint, he also had to complete substance abuse counseling and maintain employment, and as we all know, he definitely didn't do that because he stopped working on Little People Big World around that same time. But shockingly enough, the craziest part of this story actually happened after his jail stint was over and after he left the show. You guys will not believe what he did after this. It seems like even after he left the show, the Roloffs kept up a pretty close relationship with Chris. He was even referred to by Matt as a father figure and mentor to Jeremy and Jacob at the time, which is really sad and gross looking back on it. But anyway, he kept up such a close relationship with them that he started doing some very weird things. It started with a fake Facebook account that he was pretending to be Jacob Roloff. Okay, he started posting some weird stuff on social media, and a lot of people were questioning whether or not that it was even him posting, the stuff on social media, the same Chris that worked on Little People Big World. But just a quick look at his profile made it very clear that it was his personal account, and it was definitely him. And after he left, comments, a blog that was really popular at the time for discussing the Roloffs, Spirits Wander, wrote a blog post about it, and that's where everything started getting crazy. crazy. So Chris started commenting some truly unhinged things on all of the Spirit Wanderers posts after he was mentioned. He did confirm that he was a former producer and was posting his number and asking people to call him. And he was threatening the owners of the blog and saying things that didn't even make sense. I mean, it's honestly kind of scary to read. And at the time, everyone assumed that it wasn't actually him, but that it was someone, trolling, trying to cause drama. But now that we know, what we know, it was pretty clear that it was probably actually Chris. And obviously, we don't know for sure, but we do know that something was seriously wrong with him at this point in time. And we also know that he had to complete substance abuse counseling, so he might have been struggling with that at the same time. And based on his comments, it definitely seems like that was the case. So knowing what we now know, it's honestly terrifying that Jacob and all of the kids really were exposed to someone who seems to have been truly unhinged and really struggling with mental issues. And even scarier, that the kids were obviously left alone with him and that Matt and Amy trusted him. And now, this is a complete conspiracy theory now though, guys, but I can't help but wonder what the actual deal was with the fake Jacob Roloff profile. I mean, we know one thing for sure. Jacob himself confirmed that Chris had spent years grooming him and trying to convince him that they were close friends. And again, complete conspiracy theory here, guys, but I can't help but wonder if Chris was behind the Facebook account. I mean, I have literally no proof of this at all, but I just think it's so weird knowing what, he was doing to Jacob at the time and then commenting weird things on a fake Jacob Roloff Facebook account. I mean, it's all just a little off and way too much. But anyway, you guys, it makes total sense to me now that Jacob stopped filming the show when he turned 18. I don't blame him at all. I mean, he's obviously gone through a lot as a result of the harm that was done to him by Chris, but he did post an update a year after his first statement saying that the publishing what had happened to him had helped him heal from the trauma, and honestly, I'm really glad to hear it. And I always liked Jacob when he was on the show. I always felt bad for how he was treated as the baby of the family, but maybe it was all editing to make the show more entertaining, but knowing what we now know about what was going through behind the scenes, the way he was treated on the show makes everything even more horrible. I mean, I can't even believe everything he went through at such a young age. Obviously, the Roloff family benefited a ton from doing the show, but it's like, at what cost? But anyway, guys, I want to know what you guys think about this bizarre guy. I'm still in total shock that Amy and Matt let the kids be alone with him when he had literally been arrested for doing horrible things while he worked on the show. But maybe they didn't know about it, but they did seem to be really close with him. But I can't even wrap my mind around it. It's so crazy. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And also, please do me a huge favor, hit that like, follow, share, subscribe button, and y'all better stay tuned for many more videos.